And you're going to get enlightened in many different ways regarding one of Africa's oldest and greatest civilizations. We're going to be given enlightenment from one of the greatest Afrocentric scholars in the world, Dr. Oba Chishaka. We have a panel of people who have recently, yes, let's give him a round of applause. We have a panel of people who have recently visited Egypt and is going to share their thoughts and impressions of the visit to the country in regards to ancient Egypt. We're going to have a wonderful time. We've got dancers, Afro-Cuban dancers today. We've got Haitian dancers today. We've got a singer that's got her band with her. I'll give you the names and all of that later. And of course, we also are going to have a huge feast afterwards. And they're in the kitchen, they're all ready to go. So without further ado, we would like to get this party started. And I'd like to first of all introduce you to Carol Johnson Williams. She is going to lead us in our libation.
Thank you. I'd like to ask for permission from the eldest elder to begin. Thank you, sir. So we're going to call in and honor the spirit of the directions and the ancestors, that they may be with us during this time, this peculiar time, some may say, to do the work that we're called to do and to have fun. So I'll ask everyone who is physically able to stand to please stand. And or stand in your spirit and mind. And first we turn to the east, where the sun, Aten, rises, where transformative beginnings and opportunities are revealed. Inspiration and originality are born. The winged ones soar, and we honor the element of water. Water that cleanses and replenishes. We honor our children and the energy of youth. Join us. We welcome you. And let's turn to the right. To the south. The place of summer and warmth and abundance. Compassion, playfulness, relaxation. Your fire melts ignorance and fear, transforms and refines. It ignites forgiveness, mercy, and love. It is where we honor the divine feminine and women. Join us that we may honor you. We welcome you. Turning to the right, we face the west, where the sun sets, where intuition and dreams come forth, where the harvest is collected. The elders and the ancestors are honored for their wisdom, patience, and guidance. The element of the earth grounds us in the west. Please join us, Spirit of the West, that we may honor you. And now we turn to the right, to the north, from whence the cold winds blow, where wisdom and clarity lie. The North Star that guided our ancestors to liberation. We recognize the masculine and the elements of the air. We welcome you. Come that we may honor you. And we turn again as we raise our eyes and palms to the great sky, where we admire the countless stars, the sun and the moon, the galaxies and beyond, for visions and dreams, for intellect, for reminding us of who and whose we are. We thank you. We honor you. Come that we may know you. And we acknowledge the ground beneath our feet. And we hold our hands open to the earth. And we thank the beloved earth for food, water, air, shelter, and beauty. The center of this galaxy and all things that sustain us. We welcome you, that we may come to learn more about you and love you better. And now we call upon our ancestors, the spirit, the energy, the power that has the very best intentions for us and unconditional love. Come, drink, be satisfied. And we say, Ashe. Ashe. We call upon and bless the sacred womb of our mothers and fathers, their mothers and fathers, and those who have gone beyond the beyond. Come and drink and be whole. And we say, Ashe. Ashe. We call upon those who were born after us, yet went into the beyond before us. Come and drink and be happy. We say, Ashe. Ashe. Those who built empires, villages, districts, communities, and families in ancient lands and near, that we could gather, learn, love, and laugh with each other and prosper. We say, Ashe. Ashe. To those who survived the great Ma'afa, that we may thrive, we say, Ashe. Ashe. To those who demonstrated faith, tenacity, grace, and determination, they caught a vision and lived it with purpose and passion. They may have left that which no longer served life. They migrated, they immigrated into unseen possibilities, but didn't turn back, that we may have the dream realized. We say, Ashe. Ashe. To the ancestors, the mystics, the peacemakers, the warriors, the workers, the teachers, the prophets, the healers, the philosophers, the wealth builders, the leaders, those who paid with spiritual coin and physical flesh, and all of our relations, that we may stand here among such a crowd of witnesses. We say, Ashe. Ashe. Come and drink and be satisfied. And now we call your names. We call Ramses II. We call Akhenaten, King Tut, Imhotep, Ptah, Khufu, Sundiata, Onesimus, Hannibal, Frederick Douglass, Elijah Cummings, Ron Dellums, Nefertiti, Nefertari, Queen Hatshepsut, Queen T, Harriet Tubman, Queen Akua, Sojourner Truth, Nanny. We call your names. Welcome. Be refreshed. As we say, Ashe. Ashe. And now we call our loved ones, the ones whose names we are aware of, and those whose names we are unaware of. We recognize the cost you've paid, the trails you've blazed, how you have held us, held our backs, watched over us, stood under our feet. We stand on your shoulders, and you have blazed a path forward for us. We ask you by name to come, come, come. Call their names, please. Melrose Small Johnson, Mildred Small, Wilhelmina Small, Samuel Johnson. Yes. Come and bless us, and let us bless you with wisdom, grace, and healing, all that calls to be healed. We say Ashe, 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 Ashe-o. And so it is.
May I have your attention, please? And now I'd like to call the spiritual leader of the East Bay Church of Religious Science, Reverend Celeste Frazier, for our invocation.
Thank you. Thank you, Amar. And thank you, Carol, for bringing the ancestors in with such completeness. Let's take a releasing breath as we get present in this moment. And with this new breath, I recognize that the breath of the ancestors is the breath that is ours now. The breath of the earth and the sky, the air and the fire, the breath of everything that is, the life energy within us that we share. This source, this substance, is that which has informed the African kings. It has informed every being that ever was, all that is, and all that will ever be. And so in this awareness, I know that all of the qualities of this life energy, of this creator, of this substance are mine. And as I know it's true for me, I know it's true for everyone under the sound of my voice, those who are here present and those who are here virtually. And what I know is that this evening is blessed. I bless it with joy and creativity. I bless it with guidance and direction. I bless it with prosperity and support. I bless it with absolute kindness and compassion. For I know that the wonderful work that has been laid here has come from the inspiration through everyone who is participating, those who stand before you this evening, as well as those who were in the background, those who are preparing the food, and those who have set up the space. Everyone who has created this atmosphere, this environment, for us to be able to revel in our African ancestry, to revel in our determination, our Kuji-Shagalia, to revel in our steadfastness and resilience, to revel in our power individually and collectively. And in gratitude for it all, I lovingly release my word to the mind of God, which is acting upon itself, and I simply let it be. And so it is. Amen. Ashe.
So now we shall have our Black National Anthem to be led by Bluma, Lisa Bell, Joseph, and the Fat Love Band.
Very pleasant good evening. It is such an honor to be here celebrating Black History Month. I had a day of opportunities. Some would call them challenges. And one of my sisters said to me, she says, as I look out at you, because I was a little uncentered when I came in, she said, when I looked out at you to recognize I was looking at the eyes of God. And that just changed it all for me. Thank each and every one of you for your wonderful energy. Thank you so much. I wanted to talk about Lift Every Voice and Sing. It's often been called the Black National Anthem. It was written by as a poem initially by NAAC leader James Weldon Johnson, somewhere in the 1900s, early 1900s. His brother, John, set it to music in 1905. Let us sing it together. Lift every voice and sing. It's on the back of your program. Heaven ring, ring with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, Thou who hath brought us thus far. Be gospel and pop. And at times she would fuse all of those things together and create magic. One of the many things that I admired about her was that through personal adversity, she still was able to find and celebrate her voice. As a vocalist, it makes me feel very good. Birds flying high, I know I feel good. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn. It's a new day. It's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. Yes, I'm feeling good. Fish in the sea, you know how I feel. Rivers running deep, you know how I feel. Blossoms on the trees, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. I said, I'm feeling good. That love, yes. Fat Rich on the keys. Give him some love, y'all. Awesome. Stars, when you shine, you know how I feel. Since from the fire, you know how I feel. Freedom is mine, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. I say I'm feeling good. I said I'm feeling good. Hey, I'm feeling good. Nina Simone, bless you. Thank you.
Once again, let's give a round of applause for Lisa Loon and the Fat Love Band. I've got the honor of introducing our keynote speaker. You may not know this, some of you, but I'm a professor at San Francisco State. I teach African and African American history, and our keynote speaker really mentored me. He really guided me. He really befriended me and gave me the kind of support to be able to do that, teach there with confidence and vision. So I just want to give you a little bit background about our keynote speaker, Dr. Oba Tshaka. Dr. Tshaka is a master spiritual scholar, warrior, strategist, activist, author, and international lecturer. Dr. Oba Tshaka is an organic scholar whose scholarship emerged out of the Black liberation movement of the 60s. In 1966, Oba Tshaka organized the Pan-African Peoples Organization that was financed by the black community. Under his leadership, this organization, PAPO, organized an independent school, black school, the Pan-African Center for Progressive Education, that later changed its name to African Children's Advanced Learning Center, was organized in 1972, and this school continues to operate today. 98% of the students graduating from this school go on to college, with 50% receiving full scholarships. Dr. Oba Tshaka is the author of 5 books, each of which is considered a masterwork. His first book grew out of his organizing in the Black freedom movement, entitled The Political Legacy of Malcolm X. The Art of Leadership, Volume 1, are the only books in the modern world today on African and African American leadership traditions and systems. These 2 volumes are used in black studies departments, seminary programs, churches, and community organizations in Africa, Britain, Holland, the Caribbean, and throughout the United States. Tshaka's 4th book, Return to the African Mother Principle of Male and Female Equality, is considered by scholars to be a classic because it is the only book to accurately define the paradigm or model for African and African American families. This is a paradigm that will provide balance for black and non-black male-female relationships. Dr. Tshaka's 5th book, The Integration Trap, The Generation Gap Caused by Choice Between Two Cultures, explains what has gone wrong in the black family, communities, and nations since 1968 that has led to shifts in black values and behavior not arising from enslavement. Currently, Dr. Tshaka is writing his 6th and 7th books, tentatively entitled Saba, Mastering Your Inner Light of Wisdom. This book covers the pedagogy or teaching method used in ancient African culture and African American culture to produce masters in all walks of life. Dr. Tshaka's activism and awakening provided the direction that enabled him to apply these lessons learned from awakening, scholarship, and activism to the university classroom. For 38 years, Dr. Tshaka was a professor at San Francisco State University, where he is now Professor Emeritus. Oba Tshaka was a full professor at San Francisco State, where he taught between 1972 and 2010, and served as chairperson of the Black Studies Department between 1984 and 1996. He holds a PhD in philosophy from the Western Institute of Social Research in Berkeley. As chairperson of Black Studies, Tshaka provided academic leadership to the department, which led to the development of an African-centered discipline that includes the natural sciences, physics, chemistry, biology, and mathematics into the core discipline of Black Studies. There's so much more I could say about this great man. Suffice it to say, he has been an inspiration to me, a brother, a mentor, and a friend. He, in fact, presided at Maria and I's wedding ceremony years ago. Without further ado, I give you Dr. Oba Tshaka.
Hotep. It's a real honor to have a chance to share some thoughts with members of the East Bay Church of Religious Science. And I want to thank Sister Celeste Fraser, the leader of this church, for the people who are here who are not a member of this church, but a member of the African community or whatever community you come from. This is an honor to have a chance to share some words with you on the occasion of Black History Month. I'm a scholar warrior, so my approach to scholarship is a little different from most. I start with the present and then deal with the past. Because for me, you got to make the past apply to the present. And so in thinking about this, I was thinking, well, what can I say to this group? I know this is a conscious group, so my words are intended for more than people who are here, because I like to speak to the broader group as well. And so I want to say this, that we're in a time where things are upside down. And because of the time that I have, I'm only going to give one example and show you why it's very important that we draw from our history, because without it and our culture, both African and African American, we will not be able to solve the complex problems we're facing right now. Today, we are seeing things we have never seen before as a people in our community. I will only take one. There are many. We are a people who have a belief that no matter how bad things are, things will get better. We have sayings like, you mess with my dog, I'll mess with your cat. I don't care how things are going, we've always got optimism. But we are a people who never thought of taking our lives. One of the things that characterizes our culture is the thought of suicide has been almost vacant from us. Yet something has happened in our communities where 7 to 11-year-olds have now, for the first time in our history, among a people whose suicide rates have been the lowest in this country, far lower than any other group, 7 to 11-year-olds are taking their lives at a rate higher than whites. And you need to know, suicide for whites is a part of their culture. So the question is, what's behind this? And this has got a lot to do with why is our history and culture so important. Some of us are lazy intellectually. So we always have one standard answer, and it's slavery. And so we have, a brilliant analysis on the post-traumatic slave syndrome. And in many ways, it's correct in terms of dealing with the past. And so many will give an account for any changed circumstances to the post-traumatic slave syndrome. But most of what's hitting us now may have been influenced by slavery, but largely has very little to do with it. And in the case of suicide, since when are 7 to 11-year-olds even thinking about death, let alone thinking about killing themselves, let alone strangling and hanging themselves? That's how this is working. You understand? You can't attribute it to slavery because we didn't commit suicide in slavery, except for rare instances in one ethnic group, the Igbo, who were called the Flying Africans. That's the only group. And that was because they wanted to return home to Africa. So I have to admit that I didn't have the answer years ago until the beautiful light of God visited me and gave me the answer. And I've been explaining this all over the country. And everybody comes back to me years later and say, yeah, that's what it is. Because it's God's mind. When I give you this, it came through me, it's not my idea. What's behind this is a choice between two cultures. God told me that. The beautiful light told me that. What does this mean? Our youth, when they are committing suicide, don't know it. They don't even know they have a culture. They're too young to even know what a culture is. They are choosing between this mad Eurocentric culture and this beautiful new African or African American culture. But if you don't know you have a culture, and a lot of our people don't, you don't even know you have a choice. Do you know what I'm talking about? So let this sink in. We are in a situation where now the big question facing not only the black community in the U.S., but the African community throughout the world is a choice of whether or not you will choose your way or someone else's. Most often, it's an unconscious choice, sometimes conscious, but the point is how we go in the future will largely determine whether or not we draw from the best of this beautiful culture we have created here, the popular culture of the United States and the world, African American culture, and this deep culture that it draws from, and whether we'll cleanse ourselves of the damages done by slavery and what has been done now. So my topic today is the Anu, the founders of pre-dynastic Kemet. Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop, master of masters, founder of the Kemetic school of thought, made this assertion. He said, ancient Kemet or ancient Egypt is to Africa what Greece is to Europe. It is the central civilization. Correct. But I'm somebody that doesn't regurgitate what's already been said. I draw from what I've learned from my great ancestors and elders, but I try and bring in something new. So I got something to add. And it's going to shake some people up. So I would say I agree with Diop, and I would add to this. While Kemet is central for African people, and for that matter, for the world, it is extremely important to understand that it is the Twa or the Anu who gave birth to humanity, world's first human beings, and who founded the civilizations of the world, who brought civilized behavior to human beings, and most importantly, I want to stress this, founded Kemet. And it is this piece that is most neglected, because in what they founded all the elements of Kemetic civilization. And by the time Kemet was founded as a unified civilization in 31 or 3200 BC, all the elements had been created in pre-dynastic Kemet, and scholars say Kemet was in decline at that point. A great civilization, but it was past the age of creativity, yet we don't study this period. Why? The same reason we don't study the Twa. Because according to the Greeks, the Twa, who are called pygmies by them, an insulting term, because the Twa are fully grown human beings. Everything that starts off with God is small, including God itself. Small and vast at the same time. According to the Greeks, the Twa, or pygmies, were savages. The truth of the matter is, according to a historian named Krauss, the Twa, who give birth to hunter-gatherer societies, give birth to the most plentiful societies that humanity has ever known, where only a small amount of time had to be put into gathering food that women did, or hunting for it that men did, and the rest of the time was spent in leisure. In societies in which there were no slaves, no rich or poor, no abuse of women, no abuse of elders or children, yet they're called savages. I suppose the size of your buildings measures civilization. I suppose how much money you have in your pocket and how large your military is and how much you've conquered and messed up the world measures civilization. I would call that savagery and barbarism. The Twa have been reduced to the level of prehistory, to the level of anthropology. Anthropology is a conquest discipline. The Kemites, no Africans had a field called anthropology. Why? It was created as a discipline to study people of color, to control them. You understand? And the only white people in it are the Laplanders, who happen to be nice white people. So I think that they decided it would be interesting to figure out how did they come along. And in prehistory, they normally mean prehistory people without a writing. but they really mean people without a history. The Twa give birth to formative history, meaning mitochondrial DNA, the DNA of the mother that never disappears, shows that humanity began in Africa. The oldest data shows approximately 144,000 years ago. Now new data shows possibly even longer. And it traces the first human beings back to the San or Kun people of the Kalahari Desert, Twa, or the Biaka Twa in the Congo. Those are the oldest human beings. So humanity begins with them. They are the source of formative history. What does that mean? For 100,000 or more years, human beings, starting in Africa and then migrating all over the world, established civilization, and they lived in this state longer than any other state. So the patterns that we find in Twa societies are the fundamental patterns of African societies, and believe it or not, central to African American culture. And above all, fundamental to ancient Kemet. So how do we miss them? Probably the same way we get missed. You know what I'm talking about? And some of us miss them because, well, we're saying, where are the pyramids? Well, you'll find out in a minute. So the Twa are the fundamental people. So what is it that they contribute to the world? Fundamentally, most importantly, they are the most creative people on the planet. And by the way, I want to say this. You share a lot in common with the Twa, because African Americans don't know it, but your culture is the most creative culture on this planet. Do you know that? You didn't produce a George Washington Carver coming straight out of slavery who wasn't even around any black folks and ended up being the best scientist in the world by accident. You hear me? And why? Because he plugged into the mighty spirit. And what is the secret of the Twa? They are the first people that God created. And Africans all know this. Wisdom comes through the elders, provided that they've learned, because we have some elders that aren't wise. We know that. And since they are the oldest human beings, they are the closest to God. And the key thing is, because they call themselves pure people, these are people that have not engaged in the crimes that most human beings have engaged in. And so they give birth to the idea of God, one God, but not the monotheistic theory stuff that leads to death. Not to the conversion stuff where you take my way or it's the highway, which means death. No. They piped into God. And so what did they say? God was not man or woman, black or white. God is Ilani, which means infinite force. God is the ultimate force of love, of compassion, of beauty, of wisdom, of all that is magnificent. And they said God distributed a part of that to everything. By the way, in quantum physics, that's called waves and particles, except white people treat it like it's material. This is the essence of God, because we be physical beings, but we be have a spiritual experience. We are spirits in a body. We're having a spiritual experience. These Twa are spirit people, the greatest parapsychologists on the planet. You hear me? What did they give birth to? They invented fire. First to cook meat. First to smelt iron. They invented and discovered astronomy and astrology. They discovered mathematics and medicine, but their medicine was a spirit medicine. Western medicine is the only medicine that takes spirit out of the healing process. You hear me? And that's why people who have disorders, if you're living in a disordered society, you're going to have disorders, and your healing has to be total. But they don't know how to do that because to them, spirit is a spooky idea. You hear me? But for African people and African Americans, spirit is a fundamental, foundational principle of our culture, which means God comes first. Am I telling the truth? So the Twa are the founders of civilization. Can I prove this? Well, first of all, The people from the Niger-Congo Bantu region, that's where we come from, they say the Twa civilized them. That's what they say. The people of Kemet not only say they civilized them, they said they founded our civilization. It's just that the records aren't as good as they should be. So that when we look at the Twa, we need to understand that they moved out of a hunter-gatherer state where men and women were engaged in hunting and gathering, and they invented and created agriculture. And it was the African women who were gatherers who invented agriculture. And there's a Twa saying that says this: we founded a civilization called Kemi. We built great cities. We sailed on the oceans. We did great things, and then we abandoned it. What's the proof for this? Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop quotes an African, a scholar on ancient Egypt, Amilinu, who says that the founder of ancient Kemet was Osiris. Now, do you see that? That is an exact rendering of Asar. That's Asar right there. Asar was not some mythical ancestor. They have found Asar's body in Abydos. Asar is Anu. Anu are Twa, little people. See that nose? You see those eyes? That may well be a rendering of the 11,300 year period of the Anu period of founding of Kemet, in which they kept statues of all of their pharaohs, because you know the Kemites were good at keeping records. This may well be a rendering of that. It's amazing that they didn't get a chance to shoot the nose off of that. You hear what I'm talking about? So Asar is like the founder, and it's an Anu. These little people are the founders of ancient Kemet. And they lay all the foundations of Kemetic civilization. Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop notes that in pre-dynastic Kemet, the Anu founded all the elements of civilization. First of all the major towns. And at the same time, you find throughout pre-dynastic Kemet a common culture, and you'll see the mark of the Twa, or the Anu, which you'll see in a minute. So they lay this foundation for civilization. What is clear is, because this was a long period, Diop says maybe 10,000 years. The record indicates that probably 11,300 years, pre-dynastic Kemet. 11,300 years. The Great Sphinx is probably 10,000 BC, marking the galactic center, which is the center of the galaxy. So, to create a civilization, and all the elements of Kemetic civilization were created in the pre-dynastic period, this requires a long time, and it requires peace. This was a peaceful period, largely. The Twa are people of peace, but they are also good warriors. You don't mess with these little people. They maintained civilization for a long time. Now, the best piece of evidence on the Anu is provided, it's in my cover, hit the next one, by Dr. Theophil Obenga. He didn't discover this, but I asked him to translate a Medu Neter script that you're going to see next. And he is the foremost expert on ancient Kemet. I hired him in Africana Studies for 11 years. And I forced the president, because we had kicked the presidents behind. He tried to wipe us out. We kicked us behind. And then I told him, you got to give Obenga the most money. Obenga is about as political as my former cat. But Obenga was smart enough to tell me, I need Mooney. So I lied and told the president, Obenga needs more Mooney than you paid anybody. And he paid him. So I gave Obenga this script. Go to the next one. Pull that down a little bit if you can. See if you can play with that. This is a picture of the, bring it down. Yeah, this is a picture of the Anu. The bottom part says the Anu, founder of ancient Kemet. So I asked Gobinga to translate this script because a historian, a European historian by the name of Petrie, had translated it, and I questioned whether it was accurate, so he translated it for me, and this is the best scholar on ancient Egypt in the world, by the way. He speaks 10 languages. He's written his 18th book on the pharaoh that's 1,000 pages long. You understand? This was Jot's best student along with Dr. Jacob Carruthers, who was my teacher. And so he translated this, and first to note is this is an Anu, one of the founders of Kemet. We know if you look at the left leg, it's extended forward. That means royalty. If you notice the staff, it's a staff of authority, which Dr. Carruthers tells us is the symbol for Medu Neter, God's speech. And Medu Neter, which is the approximation of God's speech. So the staff of authority of the elder is the symbol of speech. Why? Because it is the symbol of wisdom. This is a wise elder. So I asked Gobinga to translate this. He showed that Petrie was wrong, and his basic translation was this. This one here is a great one. The 3 vertical registers on top means great one. And all over Kemet, where you found this unified civilization, you saw these markers. One reason why we need to know our past is we need to quit telling ourselves that we're nothing. We have never accomplished nothing. You ask the average brother what's happening, they'll say nothing. No, you great ones. Even Muhammad Ali said it before he was. If you think you are great, you've got a chance of becoming great. But how can you be great if you don't think that? But they had already done a lot to back this up. And so the 3 registers means great one. It refers to him. Who is he? He's an Uo, U-O. He's a governor of a nome, or a state in ancient Kemet. He has come to worship the god, the pharaoh. The god is this little animal over to the right there. In dynastic Kemet, that god would be Horus, but in pre-dynastic Kemet was Set. Your view of Set is distorted because those that conquered Kemet then, of course, rearranged the story. But the point is, he's come to worship the god in the temple of Hemen. That is the story. What does this tell you? These little people were running a unified kingdom. And they had a pharaoh, which meant, as you already saw with Asar, they had created the institution of pharaohship based on Ma'at, that you stand on truth, harmony, and justice. By the way, the origin of Ma'at comes from the Twa. Their term is Masuri, M-A-A-S-O-U-R, which means straight, right, just. It precedes Ma'at. It gives birth to the notion of Ma'at. The difference with the Twa is they walked it and talked it all the time. So, these people, the Anu, found Kemetic civilization. What we find also, because the question is, what's the relationship of males and females in pre-dynastic Kemet? And this was a question that Dr. Amar asked me to address, and I'm more than glad to. So what we see is in ancient Kemet, pre-dynastic Kemet, in addition to these royal officials who made up the cabinet or the council of the pharaoh, you had what was called Shepsu. Shepsu were the farmers of ancient Kemet. Kemet's civilization was agricultural or agrarian. The Shepsu were almost all women. You hear this? And this prevails throughout Africa. Most of the agriculturalists to this day in Africa are African women. Without them, Africa would starve. But what it means is, in pre-dynastic Kemet, the economy was based on them. Hello. Every year, they would elect, because the Twa give birth to democracy, contrary to popular opinion. The only time the Greeks experienced it was with the Athenians, really, fully, for about 125 years, for about 25,000 people. Now, you're going to tell me that gives you a tradition of democracy? I don't think so. Corporate America ain't run on no democracy. Trump definitely ain't running on no democracy. That's pure hypocrisy. But if you know the black person, the African person, we're democratic to the bone marrow. You so twilight, you don't like nobody telling you what to do. Am I telling the truth? I tell my wife my favorite blues song is "You Can't Tell Me What to Do." And she frowns, but that is her mantra. Don't tell her. You don't tell no black woman what to do. Isn't that right? By the way, queen mothers were never elected. We had to be elected, not them. You got this straight? Who knows how to wield power? So what we have to understand is that the Shep Sioux woman, one was elected every year to interface with the Pharaoh. And that is how, next one, the Pharaoh Hatshepsut, that's her. Ain't that bad? Pharaoh of the 25th dynasty. There was no term for queen mother in ancient Kemet, so it's Hatshepsut. That's the term. You will not understand the institutions of dynastic Kemet unless you understand the institutions of pre-dynastic Kemet. And so what you see with her, the next one, you see her burial chambers. One of the most beautiful structures in Kemet, a departure from the pyramids. And so the role of African women in governance in the Anu period was a complementary role that I describe in the book Return to the African Mother, Principle of Male and Female Equality, as twinlineal, meaning not matriarchy ruled by women, not patriarchy ruled by men, not matrilineal where your lineage comes through the line of your mother or grandparents, grandmothers, or patrilineal from the line of male, but twinlineal, meaning your lineage comes from both male and female, and that's an imprint left by the Twa, and the governance of Kemet was based on that. In conclusion, knowing the history of pre-dynastic history is fundamental to knowing the history of Kemet. It is fundamental to knowing your greatness, because this is the greatest achievement in classical civilization throughout the world. No civilization touches this. And when you know that you could achieve this kind of greatness in the remote past, you know you have the capacity to even achieve greater things right now. And I want to say this to you. As we are miring through this choice between two cultures, we have to clarify what our culture is. We need a renaissance of African American culture. But as we do it, we have to prepare our children for this age in which black, brown, red, and yellow people will be a majority in this country, and you must prepare them to rule, but under circumstances in which a society as crooked as a pretzel is made straight. You hear what I'm saying? These elections you're having now are pure shams, but there was one thing that came out of South Carolina. Black people saying they want this economy changed from top to bottom. I said, woo, got that right. You understand? And so if we draw from our past, we can take the best from it, as well as the best from Native America, the best from Asia, the best from the Latinos, the best of people of color. But I'm telling you here and now, you should know this, your culture is the culture of popular choice. People choose it because it's beautiful. We take ugliness and with this culture, make it beautiful. And guess what? Your ancestors didn't just create a culture, they created an art form. What enslaved Africans create? An art form. And you heard some of it right here. One great Lakota holy man said this: God is a sucker for music. I think we can say all people are. Confucius, the highest level in his philosophy was music. When the drums were banned, we went into our souls, the souls of black folks, and created something heavenly beautiful. That song that was sung by Nina Simone, that was a rendition of hers, it had the moans of enslavement. Those moans that enslaved Africans said they'd sing those songs so the devil wouldn't understand it. They were not Christians. They were not Muslims. They were talking to the one in Slave Row, the white man. But the point is, you can do a whole song on moons. What kind of beauty is this? So I just want to say that we've got a mighty past and we've got a mighty culture. We did not just dip into it. We need to end this U.S. of A., United States of amnesia. And we need to restore a sense that our past is with us. Y'all in here are into metaphysical stuff, and you know that when you go to the other side, you see spirits in their spirit form. Their cells contain cellular memory. You are all that you've ever been. Be the best part of it. Hotep.
Okay, is Reverend Yolanda Simmons here? Okay. Okay. All right, we're going to have a dance presentation by Reverend Yolanda Simmons. I believe it's a Afro-Haitian dance style presentation. All right. Wonderful. So that was really wonderful. Let's give her another round of applause. And so now we're going to have what they're calling the Living Wax Museum. This is put on by the children of East Bay. And so this is under the guidance of Fabiana Crenshaw and Stacy Sadiq. They will explain everything.
Hello, good evening, everyone. All right, so we are going to have a little interaction and give you an opportunity to guess who our young people are representing today. So we heard some of the awesome facts about community and about the importance of educating our youth, so we thought this would be beneficial to you all. So first up,
I was queen of Egypt during the 14th century 18th dynasty. My name means beautiful woman has come. I was the wife of King Akhenaten and the stepmother of King Tut. I was considered a part of the religious revolution from changing worship to traditional worship into praising Aten, the sun god. Who am I?
would anyone like to take a guess? Raise your hand and we'll call on you. All right.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. What was that? Nefer who? Nefertiti. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we have a gift for you. Amanda's going to give you a gift for guessing, and that came from one of our vendors. Thank you. All right, next up. Just stand up. Just stand up. So next up we have the 12th pharaoh of the 18th dynasty, of the 18th Egyptian dynasty. He is the last of his royal family to rule during the 18th dynasty. And his father was Akhenaten. And he was 9 years old when he became a pharaoh. Gotta raise your hand. Gotta raise your hand. Somebody call on who you would like to call on. All right, you got it. You got it. That's right.
I am the third pharaoh in the 19th dynasty. I ruled for 66 years, had at least 6 wives and over 50 children. I was the first Egyptian to sign the peace treaty. Who am I? Huh? Yeah.
I was the first of the great royal wives of the warrior pharaoh. I was considered highly educated with the ability to read and write hieroglyphics. I am one of the few queens who took on religious roles reserved for pharaohs. My tomb still stands today in Abu Nubia. Who am I? I was the first of the great royal wives of the warrior pharaoh. I was considered highly educated with the ability to read and write hieroglyphics. I am one of the few queens who took on religious roles reserved for pharaohs. My tomb still stands today in Abu Simbel, Nubia. Who am I? No. I am Nefertari.
You, and that concludes our journey. All right. So.
I would like to bring forward Bathsheba Harambe.
Greetings, everyone. So have we been fed today? So I'm thinking we came in with this cup that was already full. And then we was truly anointed with our ancestors, right? Letting us know that they're present in the vibration. And then we had a prayer to anoint that. So then there was more added to our cup. And then we had the music. We had Lisa to add this Nina Simone to remind us again of our richness and adding more to our cup. And so then we had the brother, Dr. Obatashaka, to just give us, as they say, the meat, the gravy, the rice, potatoes, whatever you want to call it. And for those that are vegetarian, tofu or hummus, whatever that needs to be, right? So then we had Reverend Yolanda to come and do this Haitian beautiful dance of plentiness, right? And then our youth came. And it was like, let me test you. What do you know? And so we had some eager volunteers. We also had some hesitation and a little bit of like, do I know who that really is? The reason that I'm saying that is because so much has been given. And so during this time here at East Bay, which we talk about gracious giving, community giving, and what we know is that our cup is full and it runneth over, and that we're truly blessed beyond measure. And so during this offering time, it's our opportunity for you to join in with us in this consciousness of wealth, in this celebration of giving. Because one of the things that we know about Amar and Maria and Boxanette and Reverend Yolanda and Teresa and all those that are part of this Black History program, they don't start February 1st. They actually start about November, September, but they put a lot of time to make sure that the quality that we have here at East Bay is always of excellence, right? How many of you here for the very first time? Who's here at East Bay for the very first time? Raise your hand. So thank you for being in our community. Thank you for coming today and being a part of what we call our East Bay excellence. So this is our gracious giving time. We invite you to be a part of the giving from your heart, your mind, your coins, your dollars, and I always add from my own comedian, trust deeds, whatever you want to extend, we're able. All right? So we're going to have folks, we're going to have our ushers to come and go through the lines and thank you for all that you give, and then we'll bless that. Okay? All right. Hi, Miss Evelyn. Hi, Mr. Do we need any singing right now? Because I would be eager to do that for you. Yes. No. Those who know me are cheering me on right now. Right? So, Lisa, are you available to, as we do this gracious giving, and I can do it with you if you need backup.
Check, mic check. Check, mic check. That's it. Thank you. But you can't blow out their fire. I'm going to sing a song that my grandmother taught me back in the church, the Baptist church, and honor our ancestors. You can't beat God's giving, no matter how you try. I see you know it, huh? Yes. The more you give, the more He gives to you. Just keep on giving, just keep on giving, because it's really true that you can't beat God's giving, no matter how, no matter how you try. Amen, I'll say.
Thank you, Lisa. So what we're knowing right now is the way that you have graciously given to East Bay. We're knowing that this offering that we have present before us, recognizing that this is the gifts of the land, recognizing that the very source that we are is God, and God is always giving. And I'm knowing that the way that we have been anointed and blessed today, that each and every one of you is blessed and anointed. I know that your family lineage is absolutely saturated in wealth, prosperity, and abundance, but most of all, love. Thank you for blessing us today, and thank you for being a part of East Bay in this gracious giving time. Amen.
All right. At this time, and thank you all for your generous contributions. You know, we put this program on through the generosity of this church. The church gives us money, resources to put this on, and then the congregation adds to that to enable us to do this for, at this point, 16 years straight. And so give yourselves a round of applause for your continuous support and generosity. At this time, we're going to have a panel discussion from some people who have recently been to Africa. Lola Pratt, Maria, Tony Flores, and Stacy Sadiq, and they're going to share some of their impressions, some of the places that they visited with you. So I'll turn it over to the panel right here.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. You don't like to leave the lectern empty without someone sitting here. So welcome to Straight Outta Egypt, Egypt and Back. I had the fortune to go to Egypt this past November. And I have a couple of slides, just a few. Oh, it's coming up? Okay, there we go. There we go. So I went for my 55th birthday. I went for my 55th birthday. And I must tell you that everybody goes, well, Lola, was that on your bucket list? Not really. It's one of those situations where when a moment presents itself, you have to take hold of that moment. And in this case, my cousin called me, and she was in Paris, all right? She's out there in the kitchen. She's traveling the world. And at the last minute, my cousin couldn't go, and they said, okay, Lola, do you want to go? I had like 10 minutes to think about it. And I was like, yeah, why not? Right? And then that's what happens when you put stuff in the universe, and then the universe responds, because I had no idea how I was going to make it happen. I just knew that I was going. Okay? When I got there, of course, my head is in the way, huh? Okay. There we go. Okay. My visit to the tombs. Now, you see the Sphinx and you see the other things of Egypt, but what I was fascinated by was the fact that this stuff was still there. In color. You see, some of this is color. What is this, 3,000 years old? Just about? So it was fascinating. And up close, because I wanted to show, I touched every wall. They were saying, Lola, don't touch the wall. He was like, and I was like, if it wasn't for us, it wouldn't even be here. So I touched the wall. Okay, oop, I'm going the wrong way. Hold on, bear with me. Yeah, I mean, some of the Colosseum and the columns, again, I was just fascinated by the hieroglyphics all over the place. You know, just incredible. Ramses. Ramses had a lot of kids. Ramses II, there had a large number of children. I had to make a note of it. Between 48 and 50 sons. And it's not 400. Sorry about that. It's not 440, but 40 to 53 daughters. And of course, everybody knows he was one of the greatest pharaohs. Okay, go the other way. I don't know, I keep going the wrong way. All right, I'm going to get there. I'm going back. So the wall, so there we were inside Ramses' tomb. And if I go one way, here are the walls. And again, the hieroglyphics on the walls, fascinating. And you can see the age of it, of course. The ceiling. This was the ceiling in one of the tombs. The color, everything. This is exactly, I had to take a picture of the ceiling. I was like, wow. This is all in Ramses' tomb. The walls continue, you know, just so you can see how the color and the work is still there. Fascinating. This is what fascinated me, the tombs. And there are a lot of tombs, too. Wanted to take a picture next to the bird, the falcon. The bird was also, you know, considered part of the history. Horse, thank you. And I took a picture next to it just so you can see how large it is. I look small compared to the statue. All right. And of course, the Ankh symbol everywhere, but I wanted to get close up again on the columns. Touching these was fascinating to me. And all the intricate detail. Like, who did that? Fascinating. Again, you know, over the time, you can see that, you know, some of the heads, some of the statues are, you know, a little worn, but still fascinating that they still exist. Again, more detail. Leaving Egypt, the Ankh symbol. Again, just fascinating. But there's so many more pictures that I have. but then I would take up the whole time of the panel. But I wanted to just let you know that I had a fascinating trip to Egypt. It was humbling, life-changing, and I would definitely recommend taking the trip there. So the panel continues. I have Tony, who also went to Egypt.
Thank you, Lola, for inviting me to join you on the panel this evening. When Lola told me she was going to Egypt, I said, "Oh, you are? Oh my God, it's wonderful. You're going to love it. I was there." I want to open my comments, though, with this poem from County Cullen. It is Black History Month, and we remember not just Egypt, but a little bit more. This is a poem called Incident. Some of you might remember it from your Black History classes. Once riding in old Baltimore, heart-filled, head filled with glee, I saw a Baltimorean keep looking straight at me. Now, I was 8 and very small, and he was no whit bigger. And so I smiled, but he poked out his tongue and called me nigger. I saw the whole of Baltimore from May until December. Of all the things that happened there, that's all that I remember. So I was very excited. Brett, I only had one picture. Can I give it to you and see if you can get it? Too late? Okay. Didn't make the show. You'll have to come see it on my phone. I did 2 things to prove that I was there. I have a picture of me in front of the pyramids with a waistline. You would have loved it. And the other was I wore one of my souvenir shirts with the hieroglyphics on it. I would have loved to have worn all the beautiful jewelry that I acquired while I was there. I used to travel the world and shop at one point in my life. Unfortunately, when I was returning from Egypt after my wonderful, wonderful trip there and all the wonderful things and all the enlightenment I got from being there, this was in 2000, so it wasn't just recently. I was actually younger than Lola when I went. On my way back, I was walking with a cane because I had bad knees and wasn't going to get the surgery. And one of the men working in the airport encouraged me to give him my bag, and he would gate check it for me so that I could pick it up at the plane when I arrived in Rome or wherever it was we were stopping. And all of the cartouches that I had made from my family, hundreds of dollars of gold jewelry, were missing from my bag. Now, this was in 2000. It was the year before 9/11. But they were doing x-rays on the bags at that time because, as always in the Middle East, there was some kind of turbulence going on. I went with a group called the Africa Travel Association. I intended to look it up to see if it still exists. For those of you who might be interested in traveling to Egypt and feel you can't afford it, you might want to consider looking into this organization. What they do is they have a host country, different host countries throughout Africa, and it's travel professionals. So they're representatives of all the travel institutions. They're people who work in all aspects of the travel industry. They host in their own country. My tour was actually hosted in Ethiopia that year. But for about $2,000, I spent an entire month in East Africa. Not only did I get to visit Egypt, but I also spent a lot of time in Ethiopia, and I went on safari in Kenya. So it was a wonderful trip. It's an economy way to travel, and you learn the culture. The trip to Egypt for me was a side trip. There were about 5 or 6 of us who I was traveling with people who this was not the only trip that they made to Africa. This is what they do professionally. So I was traveling with 5 or 6 people who had connections, and we rented a minivan, and we had our own private tour. We started off in Cairo, and we went to the museum. I didn't know when I went to the museum in Cairo that that's where I would be seeing all of the great things that you think of when you think of Egypt, not just the structures, but all of the old mummified tombs or mummified beings and all of that. That's where you get to see them. They're in the museum because they've all been robbed, really, from where they were entombed originally. That was a surprise to me. I didn't know that. So we spent a couple of days in Cairo. Then we went to Luxor, and from there we spent about 5 days taking day trips to all the different places where there were the different historical sites, and we got to see them. I read that little poem because when Lola asked me to remember my trip, I remembered the story about my jewelry that never made it to the U.S., but I also remembered the horror of seeing inside the tombs cigarette butts, Coke cans, and how disrespected these sacred places had been. And that's what stayed with me. Now, just like the poem in Baltimore, I've been to Baltimore. I've had good times. There's a lot of issues with Baltimore. I've had good times there. And I would encourage you all to visit. There's a lot of good things to see. I've been to Egypt, and I've seen some of what happens when tourists are there. I encouraged everyone that I knew who ever thought about going to Egypt to go right away. In Luxor, in addition to going off and doing day trips to all of the different sites, they also had all these light shows. I was afraid that in the next few years that it would be like going to Disneyland to see like a park, like a theme park of Egypt rather than seeing Egypt. So it's still there. Lola just came back. She took some pictures. It's still going on. So I would encourage you, go on to Egypt if you can, see some of the heritage and breathe that same air. And don't stand in front of a camel, they spit.
Well, I have to say my heart is really, really, really full. The program was wonderful, but I have to start with just giving honor and praise to Dr. Obata Shaka. I was at State around 1990. Dr. Shashaka was at the registration table. There were a lot of children being probationed and kicked out of school. He said, okay, how are you doing? Have you ever taken Black Studies? I had taken some Black Studies from Dr. Wade Noble. He had me doing 30-page papers, which I didn't finish. So I was struggling. I was on probation. And he said, we're going to funnel you with your general ed into the Black Studies department. And there my life changed. I always loved learning, and I became an A+ student after a couple of years. Thank you again. You really changed my trajectory. So I am an educator. I love education. I believe in education, even public education, which right now there's a lot of complaints. But I got inspired in my second grade classroom because my Caucasian teacher kept National Geographic. My grandmother had the Encyclopedia Britannica. And one of the things when it came to Africa, the first or second line was the land of the dark continent. And I was like, what is that? What does that mean? And I knew there were brown people, but what exactly were they trying to describe. And it was mystical, mysterious, beautiful, amazing, the Garden of Eden. And so from there, I happened across the 7 wonders of the world. So at 2nd grade, I had decided I need to see the 7 wonders of the world. And then I got to East Bay, and East Bay said, you can live your dreams. So then I turned 50, and people were dropping like flies. I said, I better do it now. So I also went to celebrate birthday and to just get it done. No better time than the present. And it wasn't that expensive. And the food was good. So this is me, and I look at this picture and it looks like something you find on Google. That was me taking that picture, and I'm just excited about it. So, and that's proof. The pyramid's behind me. I was there. And the next one is me and my husband. We actually, I did not know this, but you could hike up inside of the pyramid up to the top where Pharaoh Cheops' tomb is. And there's the description that we talked about in school, where the window, there's a cut in the granite where the morning sun can shine in so that the spirit is woken up, and another window so that it can come back. And it was just like, I know I shouldn't be in here. This is sacred space. But we were there, and it was amazing. And I realized that Dr. Asa Hilliard, maybe I had heard that he had passed in on the pyramid, but maybe he had climbed up to the top and gotten sick, because it was a scary small space. It was like climbing up a space as tall as this, so you had to bend over to get to the top. But we did it. We made it back. So here we are. That's us. That's the tomb. And we climbed back down. We spent the afternoon in Cairo and headed to Luxor. And what I would say for all of the photos that are there is that at some point in Luxor and Karnak, can you pass me the Kleenex here? I'm fighting a little bit of a cold, excuse me. That's the entrance. That's the entrance to Luxor. And you can see how magnificently tall the statues are and the columns. And then I won't repeat all of the things that my sister said, but it was so moving. So I'm looking and I'm processing, and there's lots of images. But what we saw at some point brought me back to East Bay and a consciousness, because the Ankh is being put into the Pharaoh's mouth by, I'm not sure if it's Horus, I've forgotten my Egyptology now, but it's a god next to him, and he is putting that in his mouth. And Pharaoh is holding hands with his brother. On the next side, there's a god deity that is also receiving the Ankh and passing it back. So the Ankh is surrounding the body. The Ankh is being passed on one side from a god to his wife, and then the Ankh continues on to him in one relief. And then he's giving the Ankh. And so what I understood all these years about the Ankh, it's about life. But that piece of, I am giving you the breath of life through the mouth. So what we speak is important. What we acknowledge is important. The Ankh is the gift of life. I'm giving it to you, and he turns around and passes it on. He's giving it back. And I saw that several times. And when I got home, a song came on, and it moved me to tears, because this is still the same. We have the power to surround ourselves in spirit, to cloak ourselves in spirit. We need to speak that not only for ourselves, but as Dr. Tashaka was saying, our youth. That's the age group I work with. And there is a lot of trauma. We have not dealt with the trauma. And that is showing up in our children. And they don't understand. They don't understand their parents' trauma, their grandparents' trauma. Therefore, they don't understand themselves. They just think that they're messed up. what I want to also impart, there's one slide. Again, that was them giving the Ankh of life. But there's one slide where the Pharaoh and his wife, it may be their marriage being depicted. The maidens are at their feet. And there is an effort, there's bullet shots, the slide that has the holes in it. Their faces are shot more than anything else. You can't see their features. So there's a place of hiding our history from ourselves, from us. I don't want to say it's always an outside entity. What I want to say is there has to be an intention to go after it. You have to be self-read, self-taught. You have to have an intention to pass the knowledge on that you come from greatness, that you are greatness. And we have to remember to speak truth into everything we do. The Ankh going out before they're going to war, within their marriage, it just said to me that we have to bless everything, every step that we take. When we get in the car, when we get out of the car, when we step into the house, out of the house, when we speak to each other, we need to bless each other. Even if we don't say, God bless you, we just need to have it in our hearts. I love you. Thank you. Please forgive me. And I'm sorry. And thank you.
Thank you for a very enlightening overview of your trip. Let's give them another round of applause. Now we're going to have an Afro-Cuban dance presentation, Salsa Rueda. This is Grant Lynn Bailey and partner. Would you like to come up and explain? This is Tina.
Greetings, everyone. I know you all have been sitting for a long time, but it's been a blessed time. It's been a blessed time. I'm just going to put this down just a second. I just wanted folks to just have a moment to stand and to just release some energy. If you want to keep standing for a sec, you can. The musicians in the house know that what that was. Clave, and that's a word. We've been in East Africa and Central Africa with Egypt and beyond. I just wanted to do that also to take us to some other areas like the Congo, Nigeria, West Africa. The clave is one of the foundational rhythms of African music and sound. And that's something also that was transported over oceans, over time, to today. It went from the continent to the Americas to the Caribbean. And if you want to ask the question, what does salsa have to do with Black History Month? or Black history, well, all of you young people know that there were Africans that came and who were brought across these oceans, not just to this country, but to Central and South America and the Caribbean. And one of those places was Cuba. Another place, we had a beautiful dance offering by our sister, was Haiti. Okay. And these African people, they kept the rhythms in their hearts and in their souls, even though they were denied the right to play the drums, to sing the songs, to worship the gods that were theirs. But they managed to hide these things away. Is there anybody here who, as a child or a young adult, were in their mother's or their aunt's or the grandmama's house, and there wasn't much to eat, or so it seemed, and all of a sudden, after half an hour, the food, something was smelling really good in the house? One of the few things that my kids have said to me positively was that, Mama, you know how to make something out of nothing. How many of your mamas and grandmamas knew how to make something out of nothing? Well, that's what our ancestors did, okay? We did it here on this continent. We've done it on other continents and in islands. And so that's what is the foundation and the history. That clave that we clapped, that's the very foundation of salsa. I won't give you the whole lecture, and I won't bring you all the way current as to how it evolved. But I brought a few friends here tonight, or actually, they brought me here tonight, to just give you a little simple demonstration of how we have kept some of our culture. And one of the things I'll just say finally before I call the brothers up. My sister just spoke on the young people and challenges. Dr. Oshaka spoke on suicide rates. But this thing about making something out of nothing is one of the things that I have seen that's important and very special, but also the thing that we have a legacy of is a sense of community. And that's one of the things that is so vitally needed, is for us to maintain that sense of community. And that's in all cultures. The caring about one another, just coming together like this, but just for no reason whatsoever, just to be together in small places, okay, with our children, with one another. And that's one of the things that is so beautiful about the ritual of the dance that we do, and just being joyful and celebrating. And the community aspect of salsa is one of the things that is such a big attraction. So with that, I'm going to ask the fellas to come on up, if you would.
was some fabulous dancing. Give them a hand. As we come towards the end of our program, we have a couple more things to do. I just wanted to share with you a couple of facts about ancient Egypt. Did you know that one of the oldest surviving works on mathematics is the Rhind mathematical papyrus written by the scribe Ames around 1650 BC? It contains 21 arithmetic and 20 algebraic problems, several geometric problems, and much, much more. It was called the entrance into the knowledge of all existing things and all obscure secrets. That was from ancient Egypt. Did you know that the ancient Egyptians invented lots of things we still use today? Ancient Egyptians invented paper, pens, locks, and keys, makeup, sunscreen, wigs, clocks, and the drawn plow. Did you know that the ancient Egyptians invented cosmetics, deodorants, breath mints, and toothpaste? That's right. Did you know the Egyptians were the first people to write on paper with ink? Their writing system is known as hieroglyphics and consists of over 700 alphabets. Did you know that the ancient Egyptians also invented antibiotics? They used to eat a fermented thick paste porridge as a food that cures illnesses and is highly nutritious and non-intoxicating with naturally high levels of antibiotic triglycerine. Just a few facts I wanted to share with you about ancient Egypt, or Kemet. Thank you. And now we're going to have a spoken word by Mama Fabiana. Welcome.
Thank you, guys. All right, so I just want to share a little bit. This spoken word derived from one of the classes here at East Bay. I did a self-mastery class and created a spoken word, or a song, which evolved to a spoken word and soon to be a children's book. So, we are here from we study an ancient wisdom and a philosophy that reminds us to stay strong and be empowered by our soul. We practice an ancient philosophy, a wisdom that broadens your soul. So be careful of how you think and act. What's your purpose? Who you hating on? Every day is an opportunity to stay on track. And how do we stay on track? Through prayer, meditation, treatments, and affirmations. Loving you heals your life. I recognize that there is only one. There is only one that can create the sun, the heavens, the earth, the moon, and the stars. Once we recognize, then the choice is ours to believe in the awareness of this essence in our presence. There's not a spot where God is not. There's not a spot that love can't top. And now I unify with the divine to keep my treatment tight, an infinite expression of the one, that's me, the all in all to the 10th degree. This is true for you as it is for me. We must learn to move through thoughts positively with good energy. I am Mama Fab with the New Thought philosophy. So now that I stated that I'm one with the one, we must move on to realization. This is where I claim my truth. I can even declare what I want for you. I say what I want. I see what I want. I believe how I feel, and I feel if it's real. It's done unto me as I believe I can achieve. Through the perfect action of the law, I know deep in my heart I embody these thoughts. The awareness of this essence is in our presence. Because there's not a spot where God is not, and there's not a spot that love can't top. So now it's time for me to give thanks. I'm giving thanks for everything, for all of the good God energy, for the essence and the presence and the spirit is me. I'm so thankful for positive beliefs. My attitude for gratitude reminds me to treat with the beat. A treatment is a form of prayer. Yes, a treatment is a form of prayer. So now I release and let it all go into the power of the universe, accepting my flow, believing my good and knowing my no, claiming perfect manifestation. I continue to grow and I release and I let it all go. It won't come back void, and this I know. I'm letting all circumstances and experiences go. I'm Mama Fab coming to you with a new thought flow. Thank you.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of our program. Before I leave you, I wanted to share a couple of more facts about ancient Egypt. Did you know that men and women were of equivalent social status in ancient Egypt? Meaning that women could own property, raise their own children if they were widowed or divorced? Did you know that history shows us that women in ancient Egypt could also become something else that they couldn't in other societies, like kings? There were at least 3 recorded female kings in ancient Egypt, the most famous of which was Hatshepsut. Did you know that the ancient Egyptians invented beer? It was their favorite drink. Both adults and children enjoyed the drink, which was not quite the alcoholic beverage that it is today. Egyptian beer was thicker and sweeter and contained more nutrients than its modern equivalent. That said, it still had intoxicating effects. Finally, did you know that the calendar as we know it today was invented by the Egyptians? The 365 days divided into 12 months, 24 hours in a day, and the hour named after the god Horus? The calendar that we use comes from ancient Egypt, the measurement of time itself. So with that, I want to, first of all, take a moment here to thank all of the volunteers who helped to make this possible. I want to recognize, if you're here, please raise your hand. The Black History Committee. There was Maria Casey, who was not with us today. She had a business trip out of town, but she worked hard on this. Fabiana, who was just up here. Raise your hand again, Fabiana. Boxinette King, he had a lot to do with all the decorations you see. Raise your hand, Box. Am I right? Teresa Guy Baran, she helped us a lot with the vendors. If you're in here, Teresa, she's around somewhere. Lola Pratt, she deals with the food, and she was on the panel that visited. Raise your hand, Lola. Yes, there she is in the back. And Reverend Yolanda Simmons, who not only was on the committee, but danced as well. There she is in the back. I wanted to thank them and all the many volunteers. Who did I forget? Oh, I'm sorry. Somehow your name, Michelle. She's our program coordinator. I'm sorry, Michelle. Let's recognize her. All right. Thank you. And all the volunteers that signed up to help to make this possible, we would like to thank you so much, because that's how we've been able to do this year after year. Give yourselves a round of applause for that. So I would like to invite Reverend Anthony Jackson here. He will give us our benediction before the food serving. 16.
16 years without missing a beat. Amar Casey. Let's give it up to Amar Casey. Yes, indeed. So we stand here. So I stand here in representation of the goodness of God. I stand here acknowledging that truly God is in the midst of all things. The beautiful light of God. The beautiful light of God. Before I go into my closure, my benediction, I'd like to invite you all to come back to East Bay Church of Religious Science. Tomorrow, we have Dr. Yvette Plunder of the City of Refuge speaking this Sunday. And every Sunday, Reverend Celeste Frazier brings the word. So come on out and support the East Bay Church of Religious Science and support us, for we are truly a representation of God. So I bless the food. I bless each and every one of you, for I know who you are and what you are. I bless the breath that you are breathing, for I know the breath that you are breathing is breathing you. And it is the breath of God, the beautiful light of God that is shining in you and through you. So I just give thanks for this evening. I give thanks for the hallelujah for the joy that I feel within my heart. I give thanks for truly we have been fed as we have been taught that God is and we are. I give thanks for this and so much more for the 16 years that this celebration has taken place and for the 60 more to come. For I know, and I know that we have only just begun. So I release these words. I let it go. I let God, for I know that it is done, and it is done well. And so it is. Amen. Enjoy the food. Enjoy your time. And yes.